Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, villagers. My name is Ben Kesnoka. Great to have everyone here, and we're delighted to have two of our Luminary LPs, Reid Hoffman, Eric Yuan, with us today to talk about all things AI. But Reid, Eric, welcome. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you, Ben.
And Eric, we must start with the obligatory thank you for creating, of course, the platform that's bringing us all together today. So awesome. You've said a few times that you think we'll be able to send digital versions of ourselves to most meetings so that we, the humans, can focus on what really matters. Could you share a bit more about that vision? I'm curious, Reid, if you buy that or how you think about a world in which we're all sending our bots to meetings. What does that look like, and what's the timeline for that, Eric?
Yeah, Ben. So yeah, well, that's a great question. So, but you look at number of meetings, either external meeting or internal meeting. For external meetings, I never wanted my digital, version of myself, a digital twin to join. No matter how good or smart it is. But most of the meetings, maybe internal meetings. For all of us, right? For all those internal meetings, some meetings you must need to join. Some meetings you do not need to join, you will cancel. But a lot of meetings in between. You do not know if you need to join or not. You're not sure. Quite often, you join a meeting, and after 10 minutes, you realize, gee, why should I join this meeting? I should leave. For those meetings, what if you send a digital version of yourself to join those meetings and summarize, everything, and assuming you are in the meeting, or maybe that meeting becomes so important, you send you a note, hey, Eric, please come to this meeting. Really, this is a call. You better join. Talk with him, right? Something like that. I think this is very important. And furthermore, as AI technology advances further, imagine even for external meetings, like say, Ben, you and I, maybe we are negotiating a contract. I do not send my digital twin to talk with you, but you can send your digital twin. I can send my digital twin. Those two have a conversation. How many license you want to build, you want to buy, and what's the current usage, and so on and so forth, and come up with a preliminary, contract. Then we can, and just have a signature. So those cases, a digital version of yourself can truly help.
So, Reid, does that resonate?
Broadly, yes. I mean, among other things, I already have a digital twin of myself that I send to things.
Yeah,
Um,
you have Reid AI. If people haven't
yes,
seen it, check it out. Yeah.
and I've sent it to give statements at conferences, classes, interaction in classes. Um, I've had to do some even, media interviews. And so it's actually already done a bunch of things, broadly, externally for a combination of when I actually can't go, and also when it's entertaining and interesting for that. And I think what Eric's gesture is fundamentally correct about is that I think there's going to be a set of different kind of external and internal places where there's kind of more utility all around for the AI joining because we as human beings have a limited amount of time. For example, say there is a, in an external one, say there is a discussion in a class that wants to talk to, kind of my perspective on something, and I can't be there. I'm traveling and something else, but they go, look, it's worth it to us to have Reid AI. I think there's always going to be a preference for Reid over Reid AI, for an Eric over Eric AI, for Ben over Ben AI. But there's going to be a number of circumstances where that's valuable if, it just doesn't work for us to be there.
And so, but for Reid AI is trained on a massive corpus
Yeah.
of writing that you've done and so forth. Eric, Eric Yuan, when you think about everyone having a digital twin that's showing up to meetings, that's a twin that's trained on what data in order to properly represent that person's opinion.
So, Ben, first of all, make sure today's read the real read, right? Not
Yeah, yeah. Well, we don't. That's right. Is this Reid AI or not? We need
yeah.
that test.
I think the trend of my digital twin is more like all the data I can access, corporate data, personal data, any data I can access. That's step one, but not good enough. Ideally, all the data here, all the knowledge here, I think stored in my brain. I do not think those data are available yet. That's the reason why my digital twin also not available, meaning to match my own capability is not there yet. So
Mm. Okay, got it.
Well, but by the way, just
Yeah, go ahead.
there's an important set of different functions. The reason I just wanted to continue the thought, which is, look, if you said read AI to make decisions in place of read, we are very far away from that, and maybe very, very far away from that. However, the being able to represent a certain set of things about why I think and how I operate, it can do a zone of that already. That zone will increase. But also part of the gesture to where I think it's important for people to pay attention to Eric's thing is to have like Read AI, say we were doing an internal meeting, and to have Read AI show up to kind of record, give some probable proxies of early reactions can be very useful. And that's the reason why I think there's a bunch of differences. And I do think that one of the earliest interactions of a broad span digital agent is not one that's necessarily trained on all your depth of corpus, but is actually, in fact, it might be trained on a bunch, but who knows, is like a kind of a note taking, kind of like, hey, I'm here to pay attention because I'm going to be giving a summary to Eric a little bit later about this and other things, and may have Eric intervene, which could be suddenly useful across a much broader swath of, for example, people working in Zoom. Anyway.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, Ben, just quickly, read it right on. Want to share with you a very simple, basic use case. Yesterday, we had our Q2 earning call. Used to be I needed to record the audio or maybe read the audio in the earning call. Since last quarter, I just generate AI, AI generate AI Zoom Eric avatar. We put in my avatar for earning call. It works so well. I never need to prepare anything anymore.
So just to make sure I understand, so for the Zoom earnings call yesterday, your remarks did you deliver them yourself or
No,
no?
it's AI generated avatar. So essentially, I give a 30-second my avatar to our marketing team. Marketing team use a earning script, regenerate AI avatar. We play back that avatar in the earning
Okay,
call.
so the audio itself was AI generated.
Yeah, a
Okay.
video too.
A video too. Oh
Yeah.
wow. So it was a video of you doing
Yes,
the earnings report completely AI generated. I love
exactly.
it. Wall Street's thrilled. The Eric, we have a bunch of founders on this call right now, people who are building AI products and applications. I'm curious for both of you, but let's start with you, Eric. When you think about at Zoom building AI features internally versus relying upon external apps to provide functionality, how do you think about that? Like, when do you think about we need to own the note taker versus we can let people, use external note takers? What other functionality do you think needs to be owned by platforms like Zoom? And then Reid, similar to you, like in the Microsoft product suite, what is Microsoft going to own and operate versus where is there space for entrepreneurs to build valuable external applications?
Yeah, great question. So in the case of Zoom, I think all those new stuff AI stuff coming from three areas. One, I look at our core competency. I look at it like take a video conferencing or phone or contact center, all those products, for example, how we can leverage AI to improve the product experience or build something new or very innovative features. That's always number one. Number two is, we spend a lot of time talking to customers to understand their pain point. And then when we come back, think about what we can do to leverage AI to deliver something faster than our competitors. That's the second area. Third area is more like, are there any new things, brand new things with the AI, capabilities we can monetize? It could be brand new things. That's the reason why, we look forward to announce something new next month. I think ultimately, especially not for startup, but for the sort of mature company, you have to look at that. But startup company, opportunity-wise, huge. You can leverage AI, build whatever you want. There's so many opportunities out there for consumers, developers, enterprise. I think just focus on one use case to leverage AI can quickly get things done.
So just to clarify, so Eric, in terms of your roadmap, do you have like how many of the applications that people currently use as external applications that they plug into Zoom, do you think you'll eventually build yourself internally?
Oh, I think for again, our core competency, core product, for sure we want to build by ourselves. Like AI
Yeah.
note taking, support cross platform, for sure that we should own that, right?
Yeah.
For other tools, like our marketing team, sales team, and engineering team. Like see, take a cursor for example. This is great, tools. We all love that. We never want to build something like that, right? So we leverage more and more AI applications from external rather than we build internal. But again, we also want to have an agent, right? To talk with all those applications to quickly get something done, fully automated everything.
Yeah, Reid, what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think it's still kind of the general principle is still like where where do startups and large companies, kind of have, and I think AI changes the landscape a little bit, but the principle is still the same, which is in the things that a large company is doing most centrally and where its position gives an advantage is a terrible idea for a startup to go after. So, like you go, well, I've got a new, desktop search idea. Like I'm just going to do desktop search. Now that's different than ChatGPT and so forth. But desktop search, and I'm going to go after that's not a good idea because it's like, okay, Google and then even Bing and all the rest. That being said, all these large companies have lots of efforts. And so you go, well, but wait a minute. Google is doing this over here, or Amazon's doing this over here, or whatever. You go, well, actually, in fact, if it's not in the core set and it doesn't leverage the key assets that the large company has, it is broadly potentially available to startups because startups can take risks, do go to market, move faster, be much more focused, because there's a bunch of things that the large companies will simply not take risks about that's outside the core three, five things that they're doing. Maybe one is a top line. And so you can do all that stuff. And so it kind of comes to a score of, do I actually have a really bold idea? Is there a really smart risk? Do I have a go to market? Do I have a distribution possibility? Usually distribution's one of the hardest things to get to. And so I think there's a broad range. And part of what to build on Eric's comment on, look, with AI, you can make a whole bunch of new things. You might see something that other people don't see. You might have a speed and a risk of like, I'll build it and I'll deploy it and I'll see what happens. Like just building it and deploying it doesn't happen in the large companies. It can happen in startups, right? And kind of see kind of what's going on. And so that's the kind of thing that I think is a very broad surface. And part of the things I love about being a tech investor is the things that I hadn't thought about that someone shows up and goes, "Oh my God, that's amazing." There's like the Airbnbs. It's like, oh, whoa, that's a great idea.
And
Like
and
so.
you know, and Reid, you were doing startups for so many years, building startups, investing in startups. Now that you spent the last few years on the Microsoft board, um, I guess has that given you a new appreciation of the power of big platforms like Microsoft? Or like are you newly energized by the opportunities for startups in a world where big tech is so dominant? Or how has that changed your mind at all in terms of the surface area for startups now that you have such an intimate view of Microsoft?
Well, the short answer is both. And so, part of it is this question of, Microsoft has a bunch of assets that make it a very challenging competitor in certain arenas. Large scale enterprise, kind of, productivity software, a bunch of that kind of stuff. Like has a bunch of things and makes it hard for a startup to do. On the other hand, like even take some of the things that where you'd say Microsoft has a natural advantage, like coding, with not just GitHub, but Visual Studio and a bunch of other things. And it's, coding, the Microsoft Basic and tools goes all the way back to the very beginnings of the Microsoft concept of being a software factory. And you look at it and you go, okay, cursor, okay, Claude Code, okay, and so like the range of availability for doing compelling stuff with startups is actually in fact much broader than most people think. It doesn't mean that there aren't really central things like what's happening with ChatGPT and the OpenAI Microsoft work and what's happening with Copilot and like those are, and and Microsoft's putting a lot of energy into how does this upgrade the core things that Microsoft's there with, like Microsoft Office and Active Directory and other kinds of participation in it. And so that's challenging for a startup. But on the other hand, there's a huge range, much broader than most people think for startups. So that's the reason why the answer is both.
Yeah, Eric, do you want to? I'm going to switch topics, but anything you want to comment on there?
No, the reader right on. I totally agree. So even for our company size, 7,500 employees, is very slow. I think startup, you leverage the AI tools with 20 people, you can build a lot of things so fast. You can disrupt anyone you want now with the AI tools.
Yeah, indeed, and that's why it's such an exciting time to be an entrepreneur, and we're thrilled to back so many of them with you guys' support. Reid, you've been thinking about AI for a long time. Um, Both of you have, but Reid, let me start with you. You've seen different hype cycles. You helped get OpenAI started before people really cared about OpenAI. What have you changed your mind about in the last 6 to 12 months, given that broad context and all the things you've seen and your moments of excitement, moments of doubt? And it could be a small tactical thing or a bigger picture thing around anything related to AI.
Well, it'll be a little bit of a two-faced thing. So look, one of the things that I still believe generally, so I did believe and do believe, and then I'll put the change of belief in the frame of that, which is the way that adoption will happen is kind of in this kind of stuff. Generally, technology is slow than fast. And it's slow because people are slow to adopt new things, especially in work and all the rest. And then fast when they're operating on a competitive clock. They're like, oh shit, you're like, I'm going to be beaten out by company X or person Y or something else and kind of and do that. And so that's how I've generally been thinking about AI adoption. What I think though, it's still interesting is the AI adoption has been slower than I've anticipated in various ways. Like when you go and ask people about like what do they do for AI in their own personal life, very few of them or work life are as advanced as just Eric is. Like think about like just about every public company could do what Eric did with the earnings announcement. And I don't know if there's another one other than Eric.
I mean, it's a great question. I actually want to take that as a to-do. Do we
Yeah.
know, Eric, are you like the first public company CEO in history to do what you just did yesterday?
Yes, first one is a public company. I know there's another friend is a private company. They
Yeah,
also did
yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's
Right.
awesome. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And so it takes a like at the moment very forward individuals and it's simply all there, but people aren't doing it. And so it's one of the reasons why like in multiple ways I'm always trying to drive my own AI use for myself and for my team to be more, advantage and like companies I'm on the board of and everything else because it's like, look, the tools are not perfect at doing everything. Like you can't say, oh, go invest for me. It doesn't work that way. But like if in everything I'm doing, I'm thinking, hey, how do I get really amplified by doing this? And I do like multiple, AI things for work, for my own work every day. And so that's I think been
So basically
slower.
there's a bit of a slower adoption curve
Yes,
from the masses than maybe you anticipated, given
yes,
how powerful these tools are.
that's exactly right. It just and I don't think it'll be slower forever.
Yeah.
Just thought it would have kicked off more strongly already.
And Eric, have you seen that within either enterprise users of Zoom or consumer? What's been the adoption rate of your AI feature set? Has anything surprised you there?
I think first of all, I completely agree with Reid. But on the other hand, also say, for any new technology, right, from internet or mobile or I think the consumer adoption is always the first one, always faster than enterprise, right? I still remember early days, I carried my both iPhone and BlackBerry for 2.5 years, and finally I dropped my BlackBerry and only use iPhone. I think today most of consumers they benefit a lot from using ChatGPT. But also we have a lot of AI features, a lot of company announce a lot of AI innovation features, but enterprise adoption rate always slow. I think at least 2 or 3 years behind the consumer adoption. There's reason why, because you take a Zoom AI feature, for example, when you work together with our enterprise customers, legal team, security team, data retention policy, compliance, a lot of things you need to, make sure they feel comfortable. They take some time. But however, I feel like in between consumer and enterprise, there's a sweet spot, which is developers. They are part of enterprise, but they're not a part of enterprise. And I think of build something to target developers, is always, I think, probably the right way if you feel like very slow. Otherwise, no matter how good your technology is, Whenever there's a new technology era, paradigm shift, it's always slow for enterprise to embrace.
Yeah, that's a great point on the on developers being early adopters. Eric, when you talk to CEOs of companies every day who are enterprise Zoom customers, we have a lot of founders on this call who are selling AI products to enterprise. What have you learned, or what advice would you give to a startup CEO when talking to a company and pitching some AI application? What have you learned these last few years selling your AI feature set into any of your enterprise customer base?
I think if you want to target enterprise customers, make sure, right? And be patient. That's one. The two is even if, let's say, you start ahead of any other competitors, you got to think about, hey, what if other competitors catch up? So what you can do, to make sure, even if the enterprise customers, they may not deploy your solution fully, but think about how to make sure the enterprise customers are part of your innovation cycle, meaning they can help you generate more data. The data also very unique for you, right? And also the data they are not going to give to any other competitors. So down the road, when they fully, embrace your solution, competitor they cannot catch up because you all have a bunch of data that's very unique to you. That's extremely important. That's number one. Number two is focus on maybe some vertical market with some domain expertise and knowledge. And also you can leverage AI. Any generic big AI companies, they cannot build that. Other competitors want to catch up, they may not have a similar domain knowledge or expertise, right? I think those two, or maybe even for enterprise department, don't build a horizontal product. It's very hard. Other competitors or big ones, they can, probably, they can build something, give for free.
Yeah.
Focus on maybe engineer, sales, any department.
What one we recently did a masterclass with a CEO for the Village community, and he made a really interesting point about selling into the enterprise, which is like enterprise customers don't just buy the best product, they buy from someone they trust, who can help them navigate this very anxiety-ridden time where everyone feels behind. They care about security, and so don't just optimize on product feature set. Of course, this is a perennial truth, but especially for AI, also become the trusted partner to the customer and help them navigate the territory. And I imagine, Eric, with Zoom and your brand and track record, that's a role you can play, as we're going to be your partner in this, even if our particular AI product may not be the number one feature set on the market. We have trust with you and we can build and grow together. Does that resonate?
That's absolutely right. However, trust is extremely important. Let's say that for your customer, they have quite a few solutions, on the table. Which one to pick? Right? For sure, if they trust you, they are going to pick up your solution. That's guaranteed. However, if something new, right, and they trust some vendors, partners, but vendors, partners normally they're relatively big, very slow. If they do not have a solution, they still want to deploy the solution from startup. Again, back to the cursor. It's a great example. The brand new startup company, a lot of companies already embrace that.
Yeah, fair point. In this AI moment in Silicon Valley today, the revenue ramp of some of these companies is truly extraordinary. Like their company is going from, zero to $100 million of revenue in record times. Um, and of course, there are also a lot of companies that are scaling revenue and then losing revenue or churning customers, right? So it's very perilous from that perspective. Hard to know what's sticky and what isn't. Both of you have built institutions that have lasted, in LinkedIn and Zoom. What do you think for some of these young hotshot founders that have created, companies that have grown extraordinarily quickly in the early days? What kind of comes up for you when you think about the necessary ingredients to build an enduring business over time, right? Because I think, and I know in the case of LinkedIn, it was a bit of a slower, the early years, Reid, right, were slower growth. Eric, I'm not sure in the exact history of Zoom in terms of how quickly were you scaling revenue in the early years, but I imagine the slower start, Reid, does cause you to sort of embrace the idea of patience and build for the long term and develop a set of principles that can last. How do you think, Reid, we'll start with you, when you meet some of these founders that have gone from like 0 to 20 million in 2 months, what advice do you give them in terms of figuring out if they're on to something real and enduring and how to build a company that can last?
Well, I think you always have to have a theory of the game of what 10 years out are. These companies are not valuable in a year. They're valuable in, 10 years and ongoing. And so Your theory of the game could be, hey, people don't really understand what we got. We've got a very slow thing, but it's compounding and it's going to be really valuable when it gets there. All LinkedIn. It could be, look, it's going to go really hard and hot, kind of right now, right? And but that is going to also put us in a place where we can go do stuff. And it's you got to have a theory of that game, and it's got to be forward. It can't just be the, hey, look, it's working right now. And, you know, but, like you could both make a mistake of being overly predictive. Like you go look at Uber and you say, well, it's only like the black cars, like the current limo fleet. And you're like the most often one is current TAMs or what dedicates stuff. I mean, like, for example, when you look at Airbnb, you could either say it's tiny because you're comparing it to like people using classifieds to rent rooms, or it's huge because it's the entire like stay in the travel industry, industry. And you got to kind of have a theory of the game of what that is and how you'll be doing it. And it kind of combines to what some of your current things is, what competition looks like, what it includes. So it isn't really a like, remember plastics, kind
Right.
of thing. It's a, hey, what's your theory of the
Well,
game for 10 years?
and it's kind of like what I hear you also saying is like be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like just because you've had rapid initial success doesn't necessarily mean you have a long-term strategy or a long-term
Yes.
moat.
Yes.
And what explains the initial rapid success and
Yeah.
how durable is that? Eric, do you want to react to this?
Yeah, really right on. Actually, lesson I learned is, hyper growth is always good, but however, it's also very dangerous. The reason why the high growth might hide lots of issues you do not know actually, because you look at the revenue, look at the bookings, MRR, right? So, wow, that's amazing. The company doing extremely well. Behind the scene, there's so many things hidden there. That's the reason why early days I specifically told our team, we don't want to grow faster. We want to fix those problems. You do not want to grow that fast because there's so many issues suddenly become most important issues you cannot fix. The perfect scenario, you can grow much very fast. At the same time, you practically fix all those hidden issues. That would be best scenario, but extremely hard.
Love that. So I love that advice. Reid and Eric, thank you very much for your support of Village and all villagers everywhere and everyone who's joined. Have a great rest of your day. See everyone soon. Take
Thank
care.
you, Ben. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks
Take care.
all. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ben.
Eric. Thanks, Reid.